Assemblyman Rible.
Present.
Assemblyman McGuckin. Here. Assemblywoman Sumter.
Here.
Assemblywoman Pinkin.
Here.
Vice Chair Wilson.
Present.
Chairman Mainor.
Present, and I believe Assemblyman Cryan is into the role once we arrive.
You report.
Thank you.
Assemblyman Peterson.
Okay, thank you. We have a large number of people that's going to testify today. So prior to speaking, I want to let you know that we are going to limit everyone to 1 minute, please. Just to give everybody an opportunity.
Come on.
We're going to limit everybody to 1 minute to give a large number of people an opportunity to speak. The first bill that we're going to consider today will be Bill A2006. Sir?
I'd like to hear the Sarsa.
One minute was the amount of time that we gave at the last session, and we took 7 hours. Not at the time frame is that it's important to me, but I would like to at least make an attempt to try it at a minute piece. If I see that there's so much more to say, I'll be leaning on 1 minute. But we're going to start at 1 minute. Okay? So at the end of 1 minute, what I'll do is ask you to start something out. At that point, if you feel that you have much more to say that hasn't already been said, it will be moved. Is that fair enough? Okay, thank you. So we're going to start with the first bill that we're going to consider the A2295.
Assembly Bill 2295 requires the Division of Addiction Services to grant residential drug treatment program licenses to certain programs operating in state correctional facilities and county jails.
We have Lynn Haynes, National Association of Social Workers, is in favor, no need to testify. We also have the Director of Hudson County Correctional Facility, Oscar Viles, along with Ben Lopez, the Director of the Hudson County Department of Human Services, along with Frank Mulder, Hudson County Corrections also, all in favor with no need to testify. I'm going to ask for a motion to... Thank you.
On the motion to release Assembly Bill 2295, Assemblyman Rible.
Yes.
Assemblyman Peterson.
Yes.
Assemblyman McGuckin.
Yes.
Assemblywoman Sumter.
Yes.
Assemblywoman Pinkin.
Yes.
Vice Chair Wilson.
Yes.
Chairman Mainor.
Yes.
Bills released.
All right, being released. Thank you. The next bill that we will be read both bills, at which point we'll then take testimony on one bill at a time. So we're going to start with Bill A2006, and then it will be after reading Assembly Bill 2777.
Assembly Bill 2006 reduces the maximum capacity of ammunition magazines to 10 rounds. And Assembly Bill 2777 defines reasonable deviations in the course of transporting a firearm.
Assemblyman Greenwald. I apologize. Majority Leader.
That's fine, sir. Appreciate it. Mr. Chairman, thank you. My colleagues, thank you very much. This legislation is critically important. This is legislation that has been advocated for specifically by the families of Sandy Hook, the parents of the children who lost their lives. They believe, and they've made, I think, very compelling arguments that in tragedies around the country, whether it was at Columbine, whether it was with Congresswoman Gifford and shooting at the shopping center, whether it was at Sandy Hook where their children were killed, that in each instance, and the ones that we see time and time again on the news, it is when the individual goes to reload their magazine clip. Individuals, brave individuals, are able to stand up and help apprehend those individuals. And it's at that time in Sandy Hook where You have the benefit of having former law enforcement officials on this committee, and the chairman, and Will Wilson, and David Rible. This is not about legal gun owners. This is not about taking guns away from individuals. We have tried to walk this line very carefully to make sure that the weapons that people have bought lawfully, that honest sportsmen have and own, they have the ability to maintain, and that the magazine clip of 10 will continue to work in those weapons. And as we've heard from a number of sportsmen from around New Jersey and around the country, the greatest inconvenience they have at the shooting range is that they have to change that magazine clip after 10 rounds. That is something that they're willing to do. Dallas Green, who is former manager of the Philadelphia Phillies, is an NRA member, is a supporter of the Second Amendment, and his granddaughter was killed with a 13 bullet in the chamber in Arizona. And he has said specifically, and he's been interviewed a number of times, that the difference between 10 and 15 or higher, when it's number 13 and it was his granddaughter that was killed, that could be the difference between your child, your spouse, and someone that you care about. So again, I appreciate the people that are here today. I support the Second Amendment. I support their right. I support their right to be here today to testify, and I support their freedom of speech. But I also believe that we have an obligation to walk the line between the opportunity to protect our citizens and make sure that tragedies like this do not happen again. And as the majority leader of the state of New Jersey, who's now been elected to my 10th term, and representing the people of this state who have campaigned on this issue, I believe the facts speak for themselves, and have earned the right to be here and testify for this committee, and to have the opportunity to represent the interests of all the people of this state, and really set this as a standard for the rest of the country. So I appreciate the indulgence of this committee, the people behind me that yell out. I know this committee will show respect to the people that testify, to not interrupt them, as I chaired a committee, chaired the budget committee time and time again for over 10 years, to make sure that people's voices were heard. And that's what's the greatest thing about this State House and what it stands for, is the opportunity for people, where they disagree, to disagree with respect for all the people that we represent. So I welcome them here, and I look forward to their continued involvement and interaction with my office. I've learned a lot from them. I think some of the people that have interacted with us have learned a lot from their interaction with our office and what we're really trying to achieve here. So I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for posting this bill. I think it's a bill that's time has come, and I encourage the committee to support the legislation. Have any answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Before I go any further, I want to ask that we understand that there's going to be, every speaker will have the respect that is due. We will not have screaming out. I'm going to have to ask that you be removed from the room. Everyone will have an opportunity to speak, and we're going to do it to allow you that time. I don't have any questions. Any of the members?
Thanks, Chairman, for you. Charlie, just trying to go through the legislation, I just want to get a clarification, if you don't mind. Just going back to last year, 2013, in Milburn, we had a home invasion. A woman was home with her 3-year-old daughter and 18-month-old child. Subject breaks into the house, brutally beats her, throws her down the stairs. Had this law been enacted today, this had occurred, and this woman tried to defend herself with a handgun with a 15-round magazine. That woman that got beat up, thrown down the stairs, it's my understanding she would charge a second-degree crime and sit in jail 5 to 10 years.
So I appreciate the question. In that fact pattern, did she have a magazine clip with 10 rounds and she used that round to defend herself? If you have a magazine clip with 10 rounds in it, you have multiple magazine clips with 10 rounds in it. That person breaks into your house, and as a former police officer, someone who was trained to shoot, as I assume someone would have a weapon of that capacity would be, would you need those 15 rounds? I have to tell you, what I've seen, we can all tell these horrific and tragic stories. I have not seen the fact pattern yet. I've seen the fact pattern where an individual goes into a movie theater in Columbine and opens up with magazine clips greater than 10 rounds. When you hear the families in Sandy Hook and the families in Arizona where Congresswoman Gifford was shot talk about that in the laws, not people that are behind us that are law-abiding citizens, but people where something, the switch is gone. There's enough common sense, and you know this as a former police officer, that there's enough common sense in that criminal's mind that they take a magazine clip with greater capacity because they can do more damage. I'm waiting, I have not yet seen the fact pattern where someone breaks into your home and you load your weapon and you fire off your 10 rounds, and the individual who is defending their family and their property and their life is somehow accosted after they've shot off the 10 rounds, and if they'd only had 11, 12, and 13, they'd have been able to fight off that assailant. It is time and time again, and David, you know, that story would be recorded if that's what had happened. It's time and time again that we see the tragedies of the individuals that are committing these crimes. And not the crime of owning a gun. That's not the crime. It's the crime of the murder and the attack and the violence that has taken place, and that they're using high-capacity magazines that when the individual goes to reload, brave people are able to step in. And in Virginia, there was a study that was done after the assault weapons ban that when they limited the magazine rounds to 10, the study on the crime data of Virginia showed that 10-round limits were effective at reducing the proportion of high-capacity magazines in the hands of criminals. That it had fallen and dropped below 10%. And that as soon as the assault weapons ban expired, it spiked. And it spiked dramatically, and more than double. Now, again, I come back to, if you're a sportsman, if you're a shooter, if you're a hunter, you don't need that high magazine capacity clip. Is it an inconvenience? Maybe. But range isn't firing back. And, you know, again, if someone can start to show me the data of your fact pattern where that woman tried to defend herself with a 10 magazine clip in clinic, and if she had 11, 12, 13, 14, and that made the difference, then that's a point for us to have a conversation. But that's why I asked the question, did she have that? Did she load the 10 magazine clip? Did she run out of ammunition? And is that when the assailant was able to apprehend her and take over? That's the point. And you know, she would not be a criminal if she had a magazine clip with 10 rounds. Let's also be honest. She's a victim. And that's not who we're trying to hurt.
I appreciate you saying that. I understand when I read the bill that anyone, victim or not, in possession of a gun, handgun with a 15-round magazine under this bill, if it's signed into law, they will be guilty of a second-degree crime if they're carrying a handgun with a loaded with a 15-round mag. Well, that could be any victim trying to defend their property.
Well,
that's my concern.
Once the law passes, there's a time period, of course, obviously, which they would be able to exchange those magazine clips in, return them, have 10 magazine clips, follow the law, buy weapons with appropriate licensure. You know, David, I guess what I would say to you is if someone who has a gun in their home illegally that was, you know, quote unquote illegal, and it was passed down from a family member, which has happened to us, right? But they didn't go through the proper licensure, and someone breaks into their house and they use that gun. As a former police officer, how did you handle that investigation? Was it an illegal gun that was used when someone was breaking into their house? Or was there were mitigating factors? At the end of the day, we all have an obligation when we receive something like that to make sure that we do the proper paperwork, the proper licensure, to make sure that we're being law-abiding citizens. This would be no different.
This is my second last question. What is, I don't see anything in the bill, what is the notification process? What concerns me as well is, you know, I was talking to the legislators saying, oh, we have the gun magazine bill up on Thursday, and I'm familiar with that, the bill was even up. So unless you're on this committee getting the 5,000 emails that we all got, some people didn't know that this bill was up today. How do we notify the local gun owners that this bill is there a system in place for them to know to exchange their magazines as you're saying they will?
David, we've reached out to law enforcement to make sure that we're doing it in the proper way, just for the reasons that you have concerned, and we're working on amending that legislation so that we have the authority of the law enforcement to make sure that we're not catching people in that trap. And David, with your background, I would welcome you to that conversation. You and I have worked on other legislation in the past, including around gun violence prevention, and would be happy to have you in that conversation with us. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I just want to comment. There was a story that came out a few years ago about a woman who was in the crawl space of her house or something, and there were attacks, and she was on the phone with 911, and they had found her, and I believe she ran out of bullets as they came, these attackers, maybe a boyfriend or something. I don't recall all the facts now, but that was a situation where she didn't have enough ammunition to protect herself. So those instances do occur. And like these tragedies that we hear across the country, they're rare, but they do occur. And to support Dave's point. And so it does happen. It just doesn't happen very often. And thankfully it doesn't happen very often. Some of this, what's troubling to me is that we're going to make these guns illegal.
We're not making the gun.
Well, you're making, some guns can't operate without these types of magazines, so you're going to effectively outlaw them as well. And I have trouble with that because firearms aren't cheap, and now they're stuck with a gun that they can't have, and they can't, without any way of getting rid of it, because how are they, what are they going to do with it? I mean, I guess they could go to Pennsylvania and sell their gun for whatever they can get for it and all that. But it just doesn't seem fair. And even some of these that we're talking about would include BB guns. I think maybe every BB gun, because a BB gun has the capacity to have more than 10 rounds in them. So are we outlawing all the BB gun rifles in New Jersey?
Erik, my point to you would be, but I would tell you, my son, plays sports, and has played baseball, and I know you have kids, and we bought equipment and bats that are not cheap, hundreds of dollars, that have been outlawed because of the speed with which the ball comes off the bat. We as government look at these types of things all the time in the area of sports and
Go to jail for having that guy?
and this issue is no different than that. The reality is the magnitude of the harm that comes from this is dramatic, and the science that we have been given show that it will not outlaw a single weapon, that the 10 magazine clips will be able to work, that it will allow people to continue to enjoy sports as they do, and be law-abiding citizens. And again, the greatest inconvenience, I am struggling, as someone who was involved in this, to understand the inconvenience of reloading after 10 rounds. And I would ask the question back, what should the capacity be? Should it be 15? Should it be 30? Should it be 100? Where would you draw the number?
Well, I don't think it's each individual. Some of us don't live in areas that have, myself included, that have a large police force. Some of my towns don't even have police forces. You are at a time period in which the response time can be significant. You're in a rural area, there's nobody around, you're somewhat on your own. And if you have these home invasions that occur, and it's not usually just one person home invading, it's several, at night, unexpectedly, there's all mass confusion. You want as many bullets as you possibly can have to protect you and your family from being victims of a horrendous crime. And so the people in my area who have their guns, they own them legally,
they're using them legally. They have no intentions of using them illegally. The horrible situations that we've read about are people who've had psychiatric problems or on these drugs that have damaged their minds. And we really, we're talking about what some sick people have done. And at the same time, we're going to put a situation in where people who don't care about the law aren't going to follow it just because you have it, because you can go over to Pennsylvania and buy a magazine with 15 rounds in it and bring it across the river very easily. And while the law-abiding person won't have that opportunity here. And what we're really doing with these laws are we're going after the law-abiding individual, and we're really not going after the criminal. And the criminals, by definition, isn't going to follow the law. And therefore, what we do is we put the law-abiding.
What are you talking about?
Please, we're not going to have that. We live, and part of this is where we live. You live in a more suburban, urban area than where I am. And we have differences about that. I was just saying earlier that to the chairman, you know where I live, on a Saturday morning, you hear the gunshots of the deer hunters. Nobody gets upset about it. We know it's deer hunters. We have no fear that the deer hunter is going to come over into our yards and victimize us. But we don't have any of those. Everybody has their own ways. Why do we have cars that can go 150 miles an hour when there's not one road in New Jersey that you can do better than 65? Why? And we could save lives by making cars go 50 miles an hour. There's more people die on the roads than anywhere else. But the law-abiding people who are doing the speed limit shouldn't be punished because they're people who don't follow the rules. And this is where we have to be very careful about how we weigh people's rights. We weigh the law-abiding citizens' rights and the criminal. And how do we really get that? And maybe we should focus more on legislation to prevent criminals from using these weapons in a way that, firearms in a way that is wrong. I mean, shooting people, using them in commencement of crimes, then we should be in making law-abiding people criminals because they have it. And to that point, under the definitions of this bill, one of my concerns is that every family who has a BB gun, a rifle BB gun in New Jersey, where you pour in the BBs into the handle and then shoot it, all of a sudden have a gun that's illegal. And quite honestly, I don't think anybody's really afraid of somebody with a BB gun committing mass homicide. I just think there's a lot of unintended consequences with what you're trying to do with this bill. And I share your concern on public safety, but there's a fine line between making people less safe and more safe. And I'm not exactly sure that this bill achieves your goal. It may, if in your analogy, if you're the 11th shot, you would be good. But there's 10 other rounds. I mean, where do we really end with this? Do we make it so that nobody can ever use a firearm to defend themselves? It's just for hunting and skeet shooting, and hopefully you hit the buck on the first shot because you're not going to get a second one. I mean, really, there's a fine line about making good, honest people criminals because of what some people who have mental problems did. And each one of those mass homicide cases, those people had mental problems, were on very heavy-duty psychotic drugs. And the real breakdown was that the adults involved didn't take the proper necessary actions to prevent those kids from having access to those guns, in which they committed these heinous crimes. And that's a bigger problem. But I'm concerned that as we follow this logic, if we go down this road, that we're going to just make honest people who want to either hunt for sporting or just protect their families from being unable to do that. And a good example is, like I said, BB rifle, where they're going to be out there. I had one as a kid growing up, and under this bill, I guess my mother's going to have to get rid of it. And I don't really see what the harm is by a BB gun that I shot cans as a kid with in the backyard.
Erik, Sumter, thank you, and I appreciate your comments. Your community is represented by the state police, one of the finest police forces in the country. You make a decision as your local community not to engage in a local police department. It's probably a dollars and cents issue. You connect this to a conversation, very interestingly, in today's news around automobiles and how fast they can go and the restrictions that we put on. We've made a determination as a government, in multiple governments around the state, and again, I talk about my son, I've taken him down to South Carolina for tournaments and everything else, and it's interesting when you drive from New Jersey through the many states to get to South Carolina, where the speed limit goes to 70, 75, 55, 45, 70, 65. We as governments make a determination as to what those speed limits should be, weighing against public safety and harm. This morning in the news, there was a report of an individual, much like you're talking about, the same type of madman who lost connection with reality and hijacked a car, ran in Texas through a state fair, killed a number of people, sideswiped the state trooper on the side of the road, got out of that car, apprehended another car, put a 4-year-old in the back, left that car, took a third car, where a woman actually fought back, got in that car, drove away, where they were actually able to apprehend him. We didn't take that incident and outlaw cars. We didn't take that incident and say that we're going to reduce or increase the size of the speed limit. We balance it against reality. And in New Jersey a few years ago, we looked at statistical analysis and we looked at the rate of road accidents, and we made a determination on certain roads to raise the speed limit to 65. I could argue that I want to go 75 because it infringes on my time and my freedoms and my rights to get home to my family. But we have laws for a reason. And there is a rationale behind it. This law does not in any way affect that person who is hunting in your neighborhood and you hear those guns go off. This bill has nothing to do with that. This bill does not go below 10 rounds because it goes back to the time of the assault weapons ban in 1994, which is now 20 years ago, because the statistics out of that, to me, appear to be effective. This does not affect a single gun owner in taking their right to own a weapon or to follow and live within the laws, much like the speed limit. There's nothing in this bill that says we're now going to go away and just restrict the use of your firearm into certain areas, like hunting or sports shooting. There's nothing in this that does it. Now, a lot of people have made the argument, something that you made here today, a slippery slope argument, and we introduced a package of bills that got bipartisan support. Some of the bills that people rejected on that were whether or not we should allow terrorists, people who are on the terrorist watch list, to apply for a gun, and mental health background checks. But we made a determination in a bipartisan fashion as a legislature that was signed by the governor that was an appropriate action of government to infringe potentially on someone's freedoms in order to protect the greater public safety. This legislation is doing the same thing. It is setting a limit, much like a speed limit. It's setting it at a certain level. It is allowing us to have the conversation on the statistics and where that safety measure is reached, and does not infringe on any of the things or the principles that you want in your community, whether you live in a suburban community like Cherry Hill where you grew up, or now live in a more rural area where you've chosen to raise your family. So this legislation is very similar, in fact, to the argument around speed limits. arguments, and it's very similar, in fact, to the reality of where do you draw the line on public safety. And again, I come back to, there's rationale and data behind the magazine limit of 10. Where would you draw the limit? And what is your analysis of that, and why would you draw the limit there? Because wherever you draw a number, it becomes a number that someone could say, well, one more. One more would make a difference.
Judge, I thank you. I don't believe we have any more questions. I want to thank you for your time coming down.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, sir.
Thank you. We're going to be calling up four at a time. I'm going to ask you to come forward. Juan Lusa, William Scanlon Jr., Richard Delgado, and Ed Cabrera, please.
Sure.
Please.
I understand that individuals will be testifying, but I appreciate your leans you're going to give towards the 1 minute rule. Is it possible that we give maybe 2 or 3 minute rule to the people that are representing certain organizations? I don't really think there's many here, but if there's like a pistol club here or NRA or something that they may have a little bit more information to give us. 2 or 3 minutes. Is that possible?
We can do that. That's no problem. If we just press the button, do we have the others already?
Yeah, Richard L.
Yeah, please come forward. Have a seat at the mic. See 4 mics here. You're going to speak one at a time now. You're going to press the button when the light comes on, just state your name, correct it, and then we'll hear your testimony.
Hello, my name is Juan Newsom. I'm a West Orange resident, former Newark, New Jersey. There's a lot of things that is wrong with this legislative measure. First, when you look at it, there's a lot of illegal gun manufacturing. And a few days ago, there were 2 Mexican nationals, I have an article right here from Reuters, charged with running an illegal gun manufacturer in Northern California. They were not only reverse engineering magazines, but they were reverse engineering chambers and also silencers. And so this legislation that's on the floor to be passed, will not solve this problem. When you look at the statistics, and I know the honorable legislator over there talked about statistics, well, 75 to 78% of gun crimes are committed by repeat offenders. This piece of legislation doesn't solve that problem. Right here, a few miles away from us in Camden, New Jersey, they hardly have a police force. And according to Forbes, in February 2014, it's one of the 10 worst places in America to live because of the violence and the crime. So members of this committee and other members that are looking at this legislation, I want to urge you to not pass this. This won't make a bit of difference. And as much and as tragic as the Sandy Hook situation was, this piece of legislation wouldn't even avoid that. I mean, to limit law-abiding citizens that just, I have one firearm in my home. Because I have 4 children, I want to have it there just in case. I'm not like a gun enthusiast or someone that has a bunch of firearms, but I have a firearm just in case something may happen, locked away safely. So I would urge the members of this committee to look at this piece of legislation and to see what's wrong with it, because it will infringe on law-abiding, tax-paying citizens that you're here to represent, not to tell how many magazines. There shouldn't be any limits, really.
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up now. I gave you 2.5 minutes.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Cut your mic off.
Good afternoon. My name is Richard L. I live in Little Drummer Township, New Jersey, and to touch more on what some of the Gregory Peterson had spoken about. It was a woman in another state who was being attacked by a criminal who broke in her door. She ran to her second floor home, her home, with a magazine of 15 rounds. In the process of her being attacked, dispensed all 15 rounds, 2 of which hit the perpetrator. And the only reason why he retreated is because he heard the police cars outside as she was on the phone with 911. When he retreated, he was able to get in the vehicle and drive away. Granted, he did crash several miles away and was apprehended, and I believe later on he did die from his injuries. But I see this all the time in Newark. Every day in Newark, someone gets shot. They don't die right there. They still are capable of shooting back at you. And the criminals in Newark and criminals anywhere else do not abide by any of these magazine bans at all. They'll go across the river, or they get them through their straw purchases delivered to them in the city of Newark, Camden, Trenton, delivered to them where they can purchase 30-round magazines, and it just puts the law-abiding citizens at odds. This law can be made better. I'm not saying that, as it's written now, it's terrible for us. You are tying our hands, literally. But if you were to take this law back and put a clause in it saying, okay, anything over a crime committed with a magazine greater than 15 rounds or even 10 rounds is a felony, and stick that on with the crime, and you protect the law-abiding citizen, then it's, I don't think there's one firearms owner in here that would oppose that. But as it stands, as it's read, at this moment, you are literally tying our hands. And as someone in Peterson had said, or no, I think it was Rible, am I pronouncing it correctly? Anyone who fires a firearm in their home doesn't have to worry about the police officer, because not the police officer says this was a justified homicide. It is the prosecutor. Okay, it is the prosecutor to make that determination. So even now, the way the law stands, law-abiding citizens are still criminals. So that's all I have to say. This is not going to help anybody, this law. I don't know. How great is anybody?
Show that someone that Cryan has joined us. Thank you, sir.
Well, we all have to sit now. Greg's getting married tomorrow.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
why he's here. You know how that is, right? He's got to go, right?
Suffer like the rest of the Lord.
Again.
Congratulations. Would you just, your name?
Good afternoon, my name is Ed from East Windsor Township, and I do oppose A2006. I just wanted to say it is a horrific tragedy what happened in Connecticut, but there's something else going on in Connecticut now, and that is that the citizens are refusing to comply with laws that they feel are unconstitutional. And the men and women that enforce those laws are also now starting to not comply. So I'd like to see that you vote against this so that we don't have that embarrassment here in New Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Scanlon. I'm a resident of Balka Hill, New Jersey. I'm also the secretary for the South Jersey Arms Collectors Club. I was raised in a home in New Jersey with firearms, as were my children. I hunt, shoot recreationally, collect, and believe in the Second Amendment. As collectors, we're afraid of the potential for both loss of value and penalty for owning a banned firearm, which in addition to the BB guns that you mentioned, also includes many .22 rifles. I'm shocked at the lack of understanding in our government of the role that firearms have played in our history. If there were no firearms, there would be no United States. Slavery would still exist, and Nazi Germany would control Europe. It wasn't political speech that defeated these enemies, and it wasn't the army, but the militia that the founders felt needed to be allowed to own firearms. The founders' exact words expressly state that the militia is the whole of the people. That's you and me. This law would affect anyone who owns a vintage firearm, not just modern firearms, but ones that have an original capacity to carry 11 or more rounds. The value of that firearm becomes valueless without the original capacity because we look for authenticity in its original construction. But whether the magazine needs to be altered or the firearm itself becomes illegal, needs to be disposed of. What's more concerning is the loss of the potential, or what's more concerning is the potential for incarceration. 10 years for owning a piece of American history. And by this definition, Lewis and Clark and their 37 party members would be criminals and cellmates because of the magazine capacity of some of their rifles. Because of our effort to preserve history, this law would turn many law-abiding citizens into criminals, cause significant loss of value, and would do absolutely nothing to stop the criminal. Absolutely nothing. And we talk about self-defense, we talk about hunting, but the Second Amendment doesn't say any of that. It says a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state. The rights of the people should not be infringed. And well-regulated doesn't mean we have monthly meetings. What it means is well-provisioned, because it was militia people that first fought the British and gave Americans independence. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
This is the first time I ever tested a meeting like this, with basic vision and listening to others. But I was raised to fight for the things I believe in and to speak out to my elected officials when I have something to say. So here I am. My name is Cheyenne Roberts. I asked my dad to bring me here today to speak to you in strong opposition to A2006. The proposal to limit firearms magazines to no more than 10 rounds capacity. I am not a ganger or domestic terrorist. As a certain vocal supporter of this bill claimed 2 weeks ago in the Star-Ledger, and this bill, if it becomes law, will severely impact me and a million other gun owners, contrary to the claims of Senate President Steve Sumter. I am a 4th grade honorable student and competitive shooter in multiple styles with numerous local, state, and national sponsors, supporting me, my sport, and career. I took 2nd place in the women's division of the statewide New Jersey Rigor Rimfire Challenge shooting competition last October. I have worked and trained very hard to get to the level I am at, and if A2006 becomes law, I will be forced to choose between giving up on a very bright and promising future in a sport that I love, or asking my dad if we can move to another state. I will not be giving up my sport. I am moving up to an even higher level of competitions this season, with new firearms that will be made illegal if A2006 becomes law. 1, a custom-built $3,000 AR-15 that will be made worthless as a result. As will my new competition handgun, a Glock 19 9mm. Both firearms come standard with currently legal 15-round magazines, which are already much lower capacity than most of the rest of the country. I do not understand why the state wants to punish people like me, other kids, my dad, and a million other citizens who have done nothing wrong because of people who have. I have experienced the same thing in my classroom. We have a few rowdy kids in the class that disrupt things and do not follow the teacher's directions. Because of them, we lost recess time every day for 2 weeks, even though the rest of us did nothing wrong. That is simply not fair with us. My dad is a full-time dad to both me and my brother, and I do not get in trouble or get punished at home because of something my little brother did.
She's not done.
We have been learning about the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, and government in my class. One of the things I learned is that when someone is elected to office, they swear an oath or make a promise that they will do everything they can to defend the rights of the people, not take them away. All of you on the committee and everyone in the legislature made that promise, but passing a 2006 into law is not keeping it. I am confused because I have seen and heard supporters of the proposal use words like need, but my teacher called what we had a Bill of Rights, not needs. Everyone is upset about bad people doing bad things to others. But punishing people who didn't do anything wrong is not the way to stop bad people. Guns don't do anything by themselves. If it wasn't against the law, I could have brought one of my competition guns with me today to show you it won't do anything unless someone touches it. My little brother is 4 and he will be in school soon. I would be very sad if someone ever hurt him, but I would be angry at the person that did it, not the thing they used, whether it was a gun, a knife, a car, or something else, like falling into a pool. I am at the beginning of a very, very bright future as a competition shooter, maybe even a chance at the U.S. Olympics team. I am an example to others that kids and guns don't always equal bad things happen. The same skills that I have learned and mastered to be so successful in my sport, things like hard work, concentration, problem solving, critical thinking, and discipline are the same skills that help me be a regular honor roll student. Even though I am young, I have gotten many comments from other kids and other parents from around the country on my fan page that I am an inspiration to them and they look up to me and hope to follow. I ask you please keep the promise you made when you were elected by protecting people's rights and voting no on a 2006. Thank you.
I understand exactly what you're saying, and I wish you all luck in the world with your competition shooting. But I wanted to just make note to everyone, if you noticed there was no clock, so if you're not 9 years old, you know that. Thank you very much. Sure, oh, sorry. Any question?
Shiana, are you part of the 4-H Dead Eyes, or are you in some other organization? Sure.
This season, she's competing in 3 different leagues, for lack of a better term. The United States Practical Shooting Association, the International Defensive Pistol Association, and what's called 3-gun, which is a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol, in basically the same disciplines. But not 4-H or anything like that.
Okay. Because I don't think a lot of people understand that there are organizations like 4-H and these other organizations that teach kids how to shoot guns in competition. Where I live up in Hunter County, our 4-H Dead Eyes have a waiting list to be able to get on to become one of them. And we have world-class shooters from our Dead Eye group. And these are kids that are learning a set of skills and when it comes to shooting, like Shavonda said there, about being able to critically think and all those kind of things.
It's absolutely true.
And it's I think part of what happens is there's some cultural differences. In some areas of the state and in the country, people do not look at a gun as something bad, but look at it as a tool or as like a basketball. And that there's whole organizations where no bad comes out of it, where kids and adults alike have the opportunity to use guns. And I think that these cultural issues are what drives some of this. And I wish people would understand that there are people, like your daughter, who are using guns in a very positive and productive way and enjoying it at the same time. And it creates all kinds of opportunity for them in their lives. And that bills like this, where we restrict guns and restrict the ability to transport guns and we do all those kind of things, really is infringing on a whole culture that is peaceful and adds to the quality of life in their community.
I would have to agree 100%. We live in a very rural area. I was taught by my father how to shoot when I was her age. People are amazed when I tell them that MIT and Harvard have rifle teams, and they offer scholarships for those rifle teams. I've experienced it myself, as my work pointed out. The same skills that allow her to compete at this level have made her a regular autonomous student. So I have to concur with you 100%. Thank you.
Thanks. So we have one more question. Tony?
Very briefly, Chad, I just want to congratulate you on your testimony today, and coming down here to exercise your rights, and hopefully you'll restore your faith in government by coming down here and sharing your work with us. I really do appreciate it. I do commend the chairman, by the way, for losing his stopwatch. So thank you.
No problem. We do have one question.
You little girl sent the email to? Did you send us anything? Your story sounds really familiar. Doesn't it? It's not you?
She's got a lot of regional media attention because of the level she's at. I couldn't speak. I know I didn't.
Well, some folks send us emails. I don't know if you guys know that or not.
I'm not surprised.
We did look at it, and I know everybody did, but I thought it was your story because it sounded so familiar.
It may very well.
Okay. All right, thank you.
How many children are actually in competition at your age?
In the state or nationwide? I mean,
In the state.
honestly, I don't know the number. I've noticed over the last couple of years that the number seems to increase every season. She's not the only one in the state by far, but it's definitely more than a few. As she pointed out in the comments, we get regular comments from people all around the country, from parents, from children, younger than her, that aspire to follow what she's doing. And she's a role model and example that firearms and guns and kids don't always equal tragedy, but I couldn't give you an accurate number.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
Hi, my name is Max McGuire. I'm here in opposition to Bill A2006. I want to start off with two main points, and I'll be brief because I assume that people will comment on this also. You cannot do this. I want to start with that. This is my property. This is stuff that I bought legally, and I committed no crime. So I just want to make sure that I get that out there because you're trying to take this property away from me. You're trying to tell me that I bought something that has been made legal. It has been legal for the last, 13 years? The law has been silent on this issue. We've had this fight already. And people in your position 13 years ago said that 15 rounds was sufficient and was okay. I disagree with that, but we've had that discussion already. You cannot make everyone in this room a criminal. We've all followed the law. So I would like to remind you that we have property, and you cannot take that property from us without due process. Secondly, I would like to argue that even if you could, this bill would not work. I assume that at some point in time, the people who sat in your chairs also banned fireworks in New Jersey. Well, you come to Trenton, you see the billboards right as you go across the river. There's a fireworks store right there. How many cars do you see driving out of that parking lot before 4th of July? You cannot stop people from getting these things if they absolutely want to. You assume that you can control people's actions. You can't. All you can do is convince people that the consequences of their actions outweigh the perceived benefits. If you are deranged, if you are mentally incapacitated, You are not going to make that connection. That's the definition. You cannot assume that you can legislate people and stop them from doing these things. So I would implore you, please do not pass this bill. Reducing the magazine capacity to stop mass shootings would be like lowering the speed limit to stop drag racers. It's not going to work. They'll do it anyway.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Legislature. My name is Anthony Macronio. I am here today to speak out against the proposed bill, which is disguised as a mag capacity reduction, when in reality it's just another gun ban. It has been proven by law enforcement in this country that changing 4 15-round mags and 6 10-round mags makes absolutely no difference, especially if it refers to its capability of tackling the shooter. This is reality, not Hollywood. This and most of the latest gun laws would not prevent criminals from committing these abhorrent acts. They are criminals because they do not obey the law. They will not turn in banned guns or bags. The job of the legislature is to enact laws for the betterment of society, not to create laws that by the stroke of a pen turn law-abiding citizens into felons. The Second Amendment specifically states, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It seems to me that we need to have our legislature schooled in exactly what that means. When a law punishes someone based on someone else's actions, personal accountability has been lost. And to quote Thomas Jefferson, tyranny is defined as that which is legal for the government and illegal for the citizenry. In closing, we stand with our brothers and sisters in New York and Connecticut. We will not comply. We know your end game. Confiscate, confiscate, confiscate.
Next come forth, Mr. Brian Miller. Nicola Moore. Carol Stiller.
Blazer. I live in Salem County and I'm an officer in the New Jersey State Federation of Sportsmen's Clubs, representing 150,000 outdoorsmen and women. I'm a grandmother, a hunter, a firearms instructor. I've qualified under the federal government civilian marksmanship program, and I've stopped 2 attempted home invasions of my home. The Federation stands with the NRA and the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs on all points they make. The Federation opposes Bill A2006 because we oppose any further lowering of magazine limits and because this bill is a ban on an entire class of 22 caliber rifles. The 22 rifle is used to teach hunter ed. It's one of the 3 primary hunting firearms in New Jersey. It's used for hunting small game animals and varmints. By banning the 22, A2006 eliminates the lawful hunting of small game animals and varmints in New Jersey and infringes on the scientific management of New Jersey wildlife populations. New Jersey hunters require the tools to manage our wildlife populations, and the 22 is one of those tools. Along with that, the 22 rifle is a necessary tool in New Jersey farms. Horsemen, dairymen, shepherds use the 22 to clear pastures of burrowing rodents like groundhogs, because if they don't, livestock break their legs when they step in rodent holes. My sons earned their Boy Scout rifle merit badges with a 22. A citizen can fulfill their civic duty and qualify for the federal government's civilian marksmanship program with a 22. The 22 can be effective for self-defense. New Jersey needs laws to encourage better mental health care and a return to moral values to cure crime. In the meantime, people must defend against crime, and many see that. 1 in 4 women in America now own guns, and that number is rising. And New Jersey hunters must have the tools to manage our wildlife populations, and horsemen, farmers, and shepherds require the tools to keep their livestock safe. But along with that, the 22 with its standard capacity magazines, is one of the commonly owned firearms American citizens have a constitutional right to own and access, and 22s come standard from the manufacturer with 12 to 30 round magazines. Not all magazines are removable and none are interchangeable because the magazine is part of the design, which cannot be altered. 12 to 30 round magazines are not high-capacity magazines. 90% of New Jersey gun owners would be affected by passage of this bill, which would turn well over 500,000 good citizens into felons. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, I'm a grandmother, and all our hearts go out to victims of gun violence and their families, especially those here in New Jersey. Their sacrifice requires we learn lessons. There's a lesson in the fact that Connecticut legislators passed unrealistic legislation and citizens openly flaunt the bad law. The people know these laws won't prevent another school invasion. These laws are an attack on the people's right of self-defense. Criminals plan their attack. They obtain the most amount of firepower they can get, and in New Jersey, illegal firepower comes from out of state. New Jersey does not have a straw purchase problem. Criminals attack when their victim is most vulnerable. They usually attack in groups. They carry multiple firearms. Thank you. They carry multiple firearms so they don't have to reload, and criminals ignore gun laws. Bad guys consistently go to places where there are no good guys with guns. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
I have one. You mentioned a weapon, just a Boy Scout gun?
Yes.
Were you talking about the Merlin Model 16?
Any .22 or an air rifle can be used to qualify and obtain the Boy Scout rifle merit badge. My sons qualified with the .22. That was their 16th birthday present.
Well, if you're talking about the Merlin Model 60, which they refer to as the Boy Scout gun, there's an amendment for that.
My sons didn't have that brand. And the rules don't say it has to be a specific gun.
Okay, now I was just bringing up that specific gun. That's what she was talking about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Sir, we'll take you next.
Hi, my name is Anthony P. Colangelo. I'm Executive Vice President of the AHRPC. I'm also the owner of Gun for Hire and the owner of the Woodland Park Range in Woodland Park, New Jersey. I'm also the co-host of Gun for Hire Radio, the voice of 1 million New Jersey gun owners. I am also proud to say I'm a sponsor of 9-year-old Cheyenne Roberts. I'm building the gun for her right now to compete with. I am here because I oppose A2006, because it will, in fact, turn 1 million law-abiding, tax-paying citizens into criminals with one signature. How will this affect lawless criminals? What impact will it have on crime with the criminals? I own personally approximately $30,000 of guns, contrary to what Ceasefire New Jersey says, that they do not make 10-round magazines for. I also have in my possession at my range over $20,000 of magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. I want to know, Mr. Chairman, who will compensate me for those? We heard the majority leader before say there's going to be a magazine exchange. So is the state going to put aside $30 or $40 million for a magazine exchange in the state of New Jersey? I need to know that because I think it's very important to all of us taxpayers and law-abiding citizens. Have you guys seen what is happening in Connecticut right now? 1 million gun owners in New Jersey are also going to say, like our brothers and sisters in the north, that we will not comply. And I can tell you here and now, I will not comply. So you can write these laws against us tax-paying, law-abiding citizens, but we're not going to follow them. That's it. Thank you.
I believe that's the next writer. Alexander Rubian and Irene Golden.
Thank you very much. My name is Irene Golden.
I'm chair of the Coalition for Peace Action. We are an advocacy group that covers 2/3 of the state of New Jersey, principally in Central and South Jersey, but we have representation throughout the state. Additionally, the project called Ceasefire New Jersey is a project of the Coalition for Peace Action, and our 7,000-member households are fully in support of A2006, and speak to you today with great appreciation for the democracy in which we live. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to thank also Senator Rible and Senator McGuckin for forwarding this bill. This is a very important bill. And obviously there are quite a few people here who speak in opposition to this bill. But the sense of the state of New Jersey is that we need to reduce the capacity to 10. And we urge you to take into account all of these testimony that's been presented by my colleagues and as well, Who New Jersey, the North Jersey Ceasefire Group, and many other groups in the state of New Jersey who are supportive of this legislation. We are, as was noted by our youngest member today, this is a democracy. We do have freedom of speech. We do urge you to hear what the passion is behind reducing the capacity to 10. And with that, I will say thank you very much, and I hope very much that you support A2006 and move it forward in the same way that the Senate, this bill is done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bob Biden, I'm with the New Jersey Firearms Dealers Association, and I am opposed to this bill. It is one of the most ridiculous pieces of legislation that people have brought up. It only affects people that have bought their guns legally. And to buy a gun legally in the state of New Jersey, you have to go through an FBI and state police fingerprint background check. After you're approved by the state police and the FBI, you then get a firearms identification card or a handgun permit in the case of a handgun. You then go to the dealer to purchase your firearm. When you purchase your firearm at the dealer then makes a check with the National Instant Check, which is goes by computer to the state police and to the FBI database in West Virginia to find out if you have any record anywhere in the world. Only then, and you're approved, can you purchase the gun. New Jersey passed a law a few years ago in order to buy ammunition for a handgun, you have to have the firearms ID card. Why are the people that are buying the guns legally that have went through these background checks subject to any penalty for having a high-capacity magazine? It makes no sense. Go after the criminal that's committing the crime, not the citizen who owns the gun legally and possesses it legally. Also in New Jersey, in this bill there is no compensation or no exemption for legal carry permits other than retired police officers. What about the armored car services? What about the retired, or not the retired, but the private detectives and the security agency that protect our nuclear power stations? They're not exempt in this bill from carrying a high-capacity magazine. Also in this bill, collectors are not exempt. Anyone who collects firearms, such as World War II firearms that have high-capacity magazines, in order to keep that value of that firearm at its maximum, that it has to have the existing magazine with it. And without the existing magazine, the value of that firearm drops dramatically. We also ask that most of the states have imposed regulations on high-capacity magazines or firearms have exempted rimfire guns such as the .22. No one thinks of New Jersey when we have our quote assault rifle that a Marlin Glenfield .22 that was given to you by your grandfather 35 years ago is an assault rifle, but in this state it is. And they're coming out of the woodwork all the time with people who inherit these guns that didn't even know they were illegal. And this just makes the burden even greater with what you're doing with this particular bill. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bruce Buckner. I've lived in the state of New Jersey all my life. I'm presently living in rounds. This is a 15-round magazine for a Glock 19. Were I to leave this in my house when I moved out of my house, and other people had a fire in the house, and this magazine was found in that house, even though that person does not own a firearm of any type, they would be subject to criminal penalties for this magazine being in that house. You're outlawing a piece of plastic with a little bit of metal filings in it that has absolutely no consequence to somebody that doesn't have that. But yet you want to outlaw a magazine that can't hurt anybody. Everybody else here has discussed, the loss of their weapons and so on. If you could guarantee me that the next two people broke into my house, there's only going to be two of them, then maybe I'd use a 10-round magazine. Right now, I use a 15-round magazine for home defense. I live near Peterson on the main road, and many times I could see where people could very easily be breaking in. So if you want to take the 15-round magazine away from me, guarantee me that no more than two people will come to my house in the middle of the night. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Alexander Rubin with the New Jersey Second Amendment Society. I'm flabbergasted today that the New Jersey legislature has the audacity to be proposing new firearms laws when they cannot even keep guns, the actual gun itself, out of the hands of criminals. You're working on regulating accessories when you cannot even keep basic firearms out of the hands of criminals. I lived in Newark for several years, and I can tell you firsthand that I've been approached by several times many gang members in groups of 5, 10, 15 people sometimes, with all types of weapons. So, why am I not allowed to protect myself the same way many of the legislators today carry firearms? We're debating an arbitrary number of 10 rounds. 10 rounds. What you're saying here is that you don't care about the first child being killed. You don't care about the second child being killed. You don't care about the third child being killed. You don't care about the fourth child being killed. The fifth child, the sixth, the seventh, the eighth, the ninth, the 10th. But you know what? Let's draw the line at 11. 11 children killed? Now you're pushing the limits. So we have to ask ourselves, what is the morally superior answer to how many rounds a criminal and a person that's been mentally adjudicated should have? How many rounds? 5, 2, 7, 10, 15? How many rounds should a criminal have? The answer is 0. And that's what we fight for. That's what we protect ourselves against, is criminals that don't follow the law and don't care about the new legislation that occurs. So what I'm asking you today, I want you to stand in solidarity with the same security that you guys are supporting that are given to the schools. I want you to disarm the police right now in the back of the room, because why are you privileged to arm security, but the children, the most vulnerable and precious thing we have for the future of our country, are protected with little stickers on the doors saying this is a gun-free zone? That is what I'm concerned about. Right now, today, in New Jersey, in our inner cities, there is a black and Hispanic genocide occurring every day. Every day I heard about shootings in my neighborhood. And the reason why I'm here today is because a man 20 feet away from me was shot while we were both walking home from work at 11 o'clock at night. And that's when I woke up to how vulnerable we are. Two hardworking Americans, an immigrant that came to this country to work hard as a busboy, going home to his 2 kids and his wife, is now taken away from them. So every day, there's murders going on in Trenton, in your own backyard, Chairman, in Jersey City. You know this. And nothing is being done. The criminals don't care. I personally witnessed a murder. It's a very, very scary and life-changing experience. So what I would like to do is work on how we can take the guns out of the criminals. Because it doesn't make a difference what type of intent you had if you're a law-abiding citizen. You could have 100,000 rounds. But if you're a criminal and you have criminal intent, if you put in this bill today, a person that conducted a crime or has criminal intent with a 1-round magazine would be charged with a first-degree felony, I would support it, because you're defining between criminal intent and law-abiding citizen. Yes?
Thank you.
So, I would like to conclude by saying that we have a very serious problem in America and New Jersey on our mental health, our education, our poverty, our unemployment, and all of that is being disguised as a gun problem. So, I would love to work with you guys and get to the root issues of these problems. Thank you very much for your time.
Jack Yurkis.
For having us here to testify about this bill. Of course, I oppose Bill A2006. I'd like to read real quickly a letter to the editor that I wrote that was published in the New Jersey Star Ledger yesterday and also on NJ.com. Legislative bills calling for limits on gun magazines are unlikely to reduce gun deaths in New Jersey. Mere possession of a 15-round magazine for sporting purposes or home defense should not be a crime. We should concentrate our efforts on those individuals who use any capacity magazine to murder people. To examine the correlation between gun deaths and magazine capacity higher than 10 rounds, we can ignore accidents and suicides. In both cases, it is very unlikely that the individual would fire more than 1 round. If we also eliminate justified shootings by police and those defending their lives and families, we are left primarily with a pool of criminal shooters. If someone is willing to murder another human, he is very unlikely to be deterred by a 15-round ban. If these bills become law, New Jersey will create an entirely new class of criminals of formally law-abiding individuals. Those of us who have scrupulously obeyed the voluminous restrictions contained in the New Jersey firearms statutes will suddenly be in possession of items that were completely legal to possess before the additional restrictions. The signing of these bills into law will merely make us less able to defend our homes and families. I am absolutely certain that concentrating on the reduction of poverty, drugs, and crime in our cities would result in the reduction of far more murders than imposing further restrictions on law-abiding individuals. Already in Connecticut, there are very valid concerns about enforcement. These laws put, I'm going to go to the end here, firearms ownership may not be for everyone. That is a very personal choice. You may very well choose not to use a firearm to defend your life and family. All we ask is that you do not interfere with our choice to use the best tool available.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stephen Corrinis. I consider myself a constitutionalist, so I'm not the party of the old for a time or something. As much as I can. Let's be honest here. You and I know that this proposed gun ban and magazine ban will accomplish exactly nothing. Currently, New Jersey suffers from a gang problem, not a gun problem. Cities such as Newark, Jersey City, Camden, Trenton, Patterson, and countless smaller pockets throughout the state are plagued with violence and gang activity due to the failing drug war. Just as Al Capone terrorized Chicago during Prohibition, leading to the creation of the National Firearms Act of 1934, today the mindset still remains that by creating laws that treat the symptoms of a problem, somehow you treated the problem. This is clearly misguided. The fact is, we all know that those who wish to engage in criminal activity are going to do so regardless of how many laws you put into effect to stop them. I would be willing to bet that the already existing magazine limit of 15 rounds is already ignored by gangs and criminals alike. Changing it to an arbitrarily lower number for the sake of doing something, anything, does absolutely nothing positive. Nothing. However, what our legislators probably fail to realize is that most of the firearms used by criminals, if they're going to use a firearm in the first place, is usually a revolver, which already holds less than 10 rounds. Why? Because they're easy to obtain illegally, easy to hide on one's person, and the ammo does not leave brass at the crime scene. According to the ATF, 50% of all handguns used in violent crimes consist of revolvers, which already, as we know, hold less than 10 rounds.
Of the remaining 50% of the guns used in crimes, 80% are single stack pistols, which already have a 7 to 10 round magazine limit anyway. So again, I ask you, what this proposed magazine ban hopes to accomplish other than to infringe on the rights of the citizenry who are not willing to break any laws or want to be criminals or shoot up schools or shoot up malls. This bill is a facade of safety, an attempt to show the ignorant and naive of New Jersey that you're doing something to help stop violence while knowing full well that this is purely an illusion of safety. Instead of taking a more proactive approach to the violence in this state and its sources, you instead propose laws that punish the law-abiding, enable the criminal, and fool the people. You don't fool me and those behind me, and our number is growing. Thank you very much for your time.
Please just hold your applause so we can just keep the meeting long, please. Thank you.
Yes, that's a tough act to follow. My name is Jennifer Kearns. I served as the spokesperson for the recent historic Colorado recalls over the Second Amendment. I'm here today to show support to my fellow citizens behind me and throughout the state in support of our Second Amendment rights. I respectfully submit that this isn't just about our gun rights. This is respectfully about each of your jobs as well. I'm here to urge you to oppose this bill 2006 and compel you by showing some critical numbers of my own. The number 10 has been thrown around a lot today regarding this McGuckin bill. I'd like to share some numbers that may get closer to home for you. The Colorado recalls, the first in 140 years over the Second Amendment, more Democrats and independents combined signed the petitions for recall. So I want to urge this committee that the Second Amendment is not just an amendment that applies to Republicans or conservatives or so-called gun nuts. Those are Democrats and independents who are law-abiding gun owners as well. The number 20 represents 20% of Democrat voters, even in heavily Hispanic and minority and Democrat and labor union stronghold districts, supported the petitions for recall. The number 2 represents 2 Democrat senators who were removed from their office by the process of recall in that state. Another number 2 represents 2 Republicans who were placed into office as new office holders to replace those Democrats who were removed. The number 3 represents a 3rd Colorado state official who faced recall over her votes in support of the infringement of the Second Amendment. And number 1 represents one of those elected officials who was not only removed from office but stripped of his state Senate President title, much like the title that State Senate President Sweeney holds today. Finally, number 47, the percentage of Americans who now report they own a gun, according to the Gallup poll, that's nearly half of each of your voting populations. The number 23 represents, as Teresa shared, the percentage of women who are now gun owners, and that number is increasingly on the rise. Each of you, when you were sworn into office here, took an oath to uphold the Constitution, and that includes the Second Amendment. I respectfully suggest that if you each fail to do your job to uphold that amendment, that your constituents will find someone else who will do that job for you. Thank you.
I've been gracious with the time. We're going to go back to the 1 minute. I'm going to ask Dan Roberts